Hey, good evening, everyone. This is the Planning Board meeting, October 3rd, 2023. The first order of business is for me to introduce the Planning Board members. My name is Kathy Barnard, and starting down at the left is Steve Webster, who is an alternate. Steve, would you be willing to sit as a member tonight because John Thurston is not here?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then Von Dugan, Peter Goodwin, Roger Murray, Doug Braskin, who is the vice chairman, and then two alternates, Jane Nielsen and Julie Jacobs. We have 3 public hearings. Well, actually 2. One of them is a voluntary merger. But the way it works with a public hearing is that the applicant will make a presentation and tell us what the application is about and answer any questions. Then I'll ask Tavis if he has anything to add. During the presentation by the applicant, board members can ask questions. And then once we deal with all of that, we'll make a motion. If there are waivers requested, make a motion to either grant or not grant the waivers. If the waivers are granted, then we'll make a motion to open the public hearing. So any members of the public that want to speak to the issue, that would be your time to do that. So the first public hearing, Christopher Milnick, 104 Filter Bed Road, tax map 189-009, case number 2023-16. This is for site plan review, conversion to multifamily, an addition of a third dwelling. And so if the applicant can come on up and explain the application to us. The other thing that you also have to explain to us, you asked for several waivers, and if you could just go over the waivers and say why you think we should grant them. Okay?
Turn on the mic.
You got to get aggressive, Chris.
All right.
Go right for it.
All right. All right. Thank you. I'm here just to ask for permission for a third unit on a building I purchased at 104 Filter Bed Road. We purchased it as a 3-unit. The entire building had been gone through and updated. We were only able to get 2 of the 3 online after some gray areas in regards to the building and the property and everything as to its history and usage and everything. So everything has been updated, current, water, fire, for a 3-unit. And we're not changing the footprint of the building. We're not changing anything exterior of the building. Everything has already been prepped when we purchased it for it, and we have since updated everything to current code. And
Okay, so 2 units existed, and the third one?
on the initial purchase, there was already 3 units in it.
Oh, okay.
The coming back to the gray area was with Tavis and Jason it was only deemed for a dwelling and an assisted dwelling unit, not 3. So it has the space, it has all of the requirements for the 3, and that's what we would like to have that come and instated to allow to do that.
Okay.
So,
All right.
as far as the waivers, boundary survey. As far as 173-15E, there's really nothing needed for a boundary survey or anything. It's an existing structure. It hasn't moved. It will not be added on to. Anything that is currently there is what it is. Building inspector, the waiver requesting performance survey. Raise all work to be inspected. Yes, in the finishing of the third unit on 173-16, it's basically just finishes on the interior at this point. Everything else has been plumbed, wired, panels have been separated, fire suppression system is installed, in use and currently active. 173-20, no changes to street access are proposed. It is the original driveway. In and out, it hasn't changed at all. The 173-21, the third unit, is within its own footprint. It's existing space. The space has not changed in any way. The 173-22, there will be no changes to existing water supply source. There was a well on site. We had it tested. It tested high for a few levels of other things, but it would not meet the criteria or loading for the fire suppression system that was needed for the building. So we had water brought in from the town line off of Filterbed Road to the building. So it's all current, brand new off of their town water system. Sewer, the 173-23, there will be no changes to the existing sewer conditions. Right now, it is a state-approved sewer system, private sewer system on site. It has been inspected. It's working as it should right now. We do have a new plan in place for when it does fail by Scott Bailey, Bailey Environmental, and that is ready to be put in on the time that that does happen and it does fail. All the utility connections are in place in 173-24. No changes there. There was an adequate 200 amp service coming in off the road, and everything has been separated per unit, so everybody has their own things.
Okay.
No signage, 173-25. Signage of the property other than a number for the property at the road. Nothing else has changed there. Natural features, 175-26. Amenities on the property, be no impact on this. 175-27.1, bicycle facilities. I'm not sure why I put that in there, but anyway, it's not applicable really to this because we're not using it as that. On the event of completion, if Jason sees that we need to have any additional lighting added, we'll make that, brought it up to current code. We did add exterior lighting to that facility right now, floodlight that illuminates the parking area and makes it safe. So,
Chris, if I could interrupt you for a moment.
Yeah.
What Kathy had asked you about were the waivers you were requesting. Are you requesting waivers on everything that you've just described?
I believe anything that I think could be applicable to it.
Okay.
And exterior lighting, and then request to maximize building potential. Yeah, 173-27.3. I'm just really wanting to maximize the building's potential use and help satisfy the need for additional housing needed in Wolfeboro at this time. So that's all I have. Anybody have any questions?
Okay. All right, does anybody have any questions?
I have a comment. Going through the waiver requests in the project summary, under 173-15E, 1 through 4, I have no objection to their not submitting a 24 by 36 plan. I think 11 by 17 is fine. Under 173-15-1, We have most of that information. I think we don't have the name of an agent if there is one, and we don't have a name and address and a seal of the preparer of the plan. And this has metes and bounds, and I don't know who prepared it or where they came from.
Anything that's taken off of that has been off of a GIS map with the current pin locations. And I also have from Mr. Scott Bailey, who needs all those confirmed boundary pins to install any type of future system going in there. So anything that's referenced on that is from current tax maps and any GIS information.
Okay. Number two, North Arrow at bar scale, that's there. Under 3, the only thing that I think is missing there is the area of the entire parcel, and that should be put on here,
On the plot plan
on the
for
plan.
actual acreage.
Yeah.
Okay. I could get that, I believe, off my deed.
Excuse me, there's 4 acres mentioned on the plan. Map 189, lot 9, 4.00 acres
Where does that appear?
On the septic plan.
on the septic plan.
Yeah, but that's not the plot plan.
Steve, could you pull your microphone a little closer?
I'm sorry. I noticed on the septic plan.
But it should be on the plan we're being asked to approve. Also, well, let me keep going. Doesn't have the abutters. I don't know whether the board is that concerned about that. We do need the location and layout of existing and proposed structures and buildings, and we are tonight being asked to approve a multifamily dwelling, but that does not appear on this plan. We have a existing commercial space with third unit to be created, and we've got an existing foundation. I'm guessing that the commercial space is now an apartment, is now the multifamily dwelling?
That was the building that was purchased that had the units in it upon purchase.
Okay,
There is a future foundation, a foundation on there that says for future completion on that, that's also been on it since the time the first building was erected.
But we need a plan that shows the multifamily dwelling, because if you look at this, you'd never know we were approving a multifamily dwelling.
Chris, I think that Roger's concern is that the plan that you provided labels the existing building as existing commercial space, and then in parentheses below it says third unit to be completed, but nowhere does it say that there are 2 existing units.
Okay.
Or well, you can put in there are going to be 3, because that's what you're asking us to approve.
Okay.
And we also should have a floor, we've got a plan of the second floor, which should be a little better identified. I mean, I think you have all this information. It's just so we have a complete file so that somebody coming along knows what we approved.
I understand that.
And if we get something that shows the building and elevation, I mean, it's already there, but it would be nice if we had something that said, doesn't need to be an architect's drawing, just something that showed something that looks like the building. Because on the tax map, it looks as though the garage is somewhere there.
Yeah, that's what is currently recorded on the tax. Yeah, and anything online, it does show that of a garage.
Are they now? Is the garage now apartments?
I purchased it. It already had the units in it. There was already 3 in total already there. And nothing has changed as far as space-wise, layout-wise, or any other thing inside the building. Yeah.
Go ahead, Tavis.
I was just going to get into some of the gray areas Mr. Melnick referred to it. So in 1986, there was a building permit issued for a single-family home and a 6-bay garage. That's where the town lost touch with the property. For some fleeting moment, there may have been a 6-bay garage, but by the time Mr. Melnick bought it, it had been illegally converted to 3 units without any town permits, inspections, or otherwise. So one of the things I put in the staff review related to 67441. And I'm going to try and mix all of these pieces together.
Yeah.
Hopefully it works out. So 67441 literally says no structure shall be erected on a lot with no frontage. In this case, the town issued a building permit for 2 structures 3 years after 67441 became a statute. So to that end, what we were faced with just before Melnick's bought it and just after they bought it was the realization that we had 3 units with no inspections that existed in the existing building that had received a building permit from the town vis-a-vis the 6-bay garage. So the conversation, or the gray area, if you will, was, does 67441 apply for the interior conversion to a duplex? And people can land on either side of that question. The decision that was made was that no, it did not, because the structure was already there. So he was given a permit in 22
Yeah.
to complete the duplex with a complete understanding that moving to the 3rd unit would trigger site plan review, and the reason we're here tonight. So I had some discussion with council, and I'm just going to put it all out there. Because it's an interior conversion, I'm going to leave it to the board if you feel that the special exception under 175-55.1 for lots with no frontage is applicable. That is a decision the board can make. It is different from that the staff made when we issued the permit for a duplex. However, it's also an interior conversion. So you remember a couple of weeks ago when, I'll blame myself, I can't blame Chris, he manages a lot of calendars. He had the wrong date provided, so he wasn't here to explain any of this to you. This was the project that was denied without prejudice, and then he resubmitted. When he brought in the new drawings, I said, what's this existing commercial building? And we both shook our heads and said, well, that is the only building on the property. So to that end, if we get there, what I'll be, and following up on Roger's comments, is recommending that photos and plan revisions be provided to the file to clearly demonstrate existing duplex to contain 3rd unit, all interior conversion, and then the existing foundation that I don't even believe received an inspection in 1986, but has since.
Yeah.
And I believe Mr. Melnick will be returning at some point in the future for a multi-use structure for the remaining density allowed on the property, along with a home office and things like that on the 1st floor to comply with the Bay Street Limited Business District. I would recommend at that time, heads up to all involved, that I do believe that 67441 is required for that new structure to go from the foundation up. That's how we got to where we are.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the person from whom you bought this property.
I keep getting stories.
He's had a
from
lengthy
this
career, was
gentleman,
probably
yes.
better than anybody else in the town at poking holes in the zoning ordinance. And I'm just trying to get it so that we have the information when we approve this, so that somebody knows what we approved. I think you've got it all. There are just some things here that it would be good if you could just get them on a plan. And I think that, the fact that you did acquire this the way you did, I don't think 67441 applies. I think that, we do have to look at how we would treat somebody else. But I think in this case, if we can do get sufficient information, then we can move forward.
Okay. And that being exterior elevations and a cleaner floor plan?
Yeah.
Well, exterior elevations, I think, would be a photo at this point.
Pretty much. I mean, I
And-
can try to get some floor elevations off the grade, but
Well, you have the building plan from the duplex, there's your 1st floor, you have the 2nd floor.
Right.
And then changing the site plan to reflect 2 unit to become 3 unit or something to that effect.
okay.
Go ahead, Julie.
I've got a question about that floor plan. It is 2 units up there, right? Because we start counting bedrooms and kitchens. No?
There is,
This is the downstairs?
there's a downstairs, and then there's a garage space next to it, a 2-bay garage space.
Yeah?
And then upstairs, above the garage, is a single-bed unit. And then above, on the other
Is that
side,
this?
on the 2nd floor
Is this
is,
the 2nd floor or the 1st floor?
That is the second floor.
That's the second floor.
Yes, sorry. All I
So-
was asked to submit
Yeah, I know.
was the second
But
floor.
it just
so-
doesn't say unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, that's all.
So
Apologies, yes.
Unit 3 is from the stairs to
Stairs
the
over.
left as you're looking at it. Unit 2 is the existing second floor over the garage to the right of the stairs.
Oh, the little one is existing?
Correct.
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought it was the other way around.
Downstairs looks just the same, only to the right of the stairs is garage and to the left is unit 1.
Correct.
Okay, so it's going to be a 3-bedroom when you get done. It's going to be big.
Correct. Yeah. It's
Oh.
the space is massive for
Oh, I
what
thought
it
you were
is.
just going to do the little one.
It's deceiving.
Yeah, so it just needs to be, something saying 1 unit,
Okay. Okay.
double
Sure.
line something.
Sure.
So I wonder if it should not say existing duplex and not existing commercial space, because it's not commercial yet.
But he's seeking
Well, it is
approval for a
commercial.
multifamily
No, that's
dwelling.
what he would be, but it's not what he is.
Existing duplex, proposed triplex.
Yeah.
Yes,
Which kind of is commercial,
which becomes a commercial space, right?
so it's not wrong.
Okay,
Was notice sent out on this? Because we don't have a list of abutters.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
okay, anything else? Any other questions?
I guess I would be happier if there was some,
Peter, could you pull your mic forward?
I would be happy if there was some line delineating the 2 units.
Sure.
Because right now, it's a little hard to figure it out. I figured it out, but,
Yep.
if there was something dark that made the separation.
Separated the two and had a more definitive line, sure.
Okay, Roger, did you have something else?
I think it would be helpful if we had the width of the entrance road and the setback of the building, at least from that one boundary, the northeasterly boundary.
Northeast boundary?
Yeah, I mean, the rest of them are pretty distant, but that's the closest one.
Okay.
And if you wanted to
I have
put it,
one more question.
Yeah, okay.
Does the proposed septic system include capacity for the future development?
Yes, it does.
the,
Of that unit, of the 3 to
But not
be
the
completed.
existing foundation?
Not the other foundation.
Not
That will
yet,
have a
okay.
completely separate
Yep.
entity and septic. Yep.
the plan you have is for 2 3-bedroom units and 1 2-bedroom unit?
For the septic?
Yeah.
It's for 2 3-bedrooms and 1 single bed. I believe that's what it's sized
Well,
for.
I think it says it's for 2. So you have a,
2?
yeah, a 2-bedroom.
I'll have to double
But
check
that
on
makes no
that.
difference because
Yeah.
that means it was over-designed.
Yeah.
Is the state approval for a 2-bedroom system? I mean, a 3-bed, for this number of bedrooms?
It is sized for that capacity, yes.
The current one?
Is not. The current one is for, I believe, I'll have to look back through it. I believe it was just a single family with a one-bed dwelling unit next to it. So it was for a 3-bed, basically. That's currently in use, but it has not failed, and it looks like it's in operating condition right now. Nothing has told us otherwise that it is on its way out.
Okay. I entertain a motion to grant the waivers since I think the applicant has justified the waivers he's requesting.
So moved.
Okay,
Well, I don't think we're granting waivers to all of them. I think a lot of the information he's supplied, I would be in favor of granting waivers to 173-16 through 18, 173-20, 173-21, and the only thing on 173-22, I think it would be helpful to have the location of the water line shown on the plan. But I would, and then 175E, I would grant some of the waivers, but not all of them. But I think the ones we wouldn't be granting, it would really be because he's supplied the information.
okay, would you like to make a motion then for the waivers that?
I'll
you
amend
think
my
we-
motion as Roger has described.
Okay. All right, good idea.
But I think we need to restate it again so Tavis can record it clearly.
That
Well, I have 173:16 through 18, 173:20 and 21.
173:15,
I have 16 through 18. That's what I heard.
I would say 175-15, he doesn't really need a waiver for 1, he doesn't need a waiver for 2, and 3, the only thing he needs to supply is the area of the parcel. And it's up to the board if you think we need surveyed property lines, names of butters. He's going to give us the layout of the existing proposed structures, and I would not require a survey with what we have in front of us. So I would grant waivers to 4. Be 175-15-4, A through G.
Okay. Did you get that, Doug?
I believe so. But I'll see if I can read it again just to make sure we have it clear. So the motion is to approve the waivers for 173-15E4, A through G. Is that right, Roger?
Yes.
And then 173-16 through 18,
Yep.
173-20,
Yep.
173-21,
Yep.
and then for 173-22, you'd like to see the water supply mapped out.
Is that a problem?
No, I know the exact location
Okay.
it is, and I don't know if it's on the septic plan or not, but
I
can easily do that.
Okay.
Were there any others? Did I miss something?
Was there something about setback lines?
You wanted a pin location in relation to the driveway and the building?
Yeah, I have driveway width and setback to northeast property line. Just conditions, not waivers.
On the site plan.
Okay.
And you wanted to change the description, too.
Yes.
Description,
Change
yeah.
the title of the building.
But again, that's a
Condition.
condition, not a waiver.
Right.
So I think I've got all the waivers covered.
Okay.
Okay, I'll second that motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the waivers are granted, and now that means that the application is complete. I'd make a motion to accept this application as complete.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we go to the public and see if there are any members of the public that want to speak to this issue.
Question?
And I don't see anyone rushing forward, so. Okay, Tavis, have you got some conditions? Oh,
I think there is one last fly in the ointment, and that is, I believe that he needs to install the new septic system before we can approve this, because he's got a 2-bedroom, and he's putting in 7 bedrooms.
According to the state, he does not.
He doesn't?
He needs to have a shelf plan ready to go in case, if and when the current system fails. That's how they treat most of these systems.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which he has,
Which he has.
yes.
Great.
So recommended conditions, going back to the materials received August 15th and is amended through this evening. Applicants responsible for the recording fees for the notice of decision, and all documents in the file become the controlling documents. I would suggest condition number 4, the site plan be amended to include area of parcel and setback call out on the northeast property line from the structure, as well as relabeling the existing structure to duplex to become triplex.
And one of the parking spaces should be,
I don't think the parking spaces are in the access road.
No,
One of them
everything's up.
appears to be.
There is a cut through that comes between and circles back around, which we're trying to eliminate once
Okay.
once they're set. It's not going to interrupt or interfere in any way.
So the left-hand branch here would be eliminated?
Correct. Yeah, that's
Then that
just
should probably disappear on
on the plan.
the plan.
Okay.
So, yes, condition 5 would be remove cutoff from plan,
Okay, all right, thank you.
or driveway cutoff, however we want to.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing now. Someone want to make a motion on this application
I'll make a motion to approve it
for the,
with the conditions as described by Tavis.
Maybe some findings.
yes, I'm going to do the findings. Okay, all right, you've made the motion, I'll second it. All in favor? So, do I do the findings after the vote or before?
Personally, I'm more comfortable with them before, so everyone
okay.
understands the findings you're basing your decision on.
Okay, all right. Okay, this application meets the criteria for the Bay Street Limited Business District, meets the setbacks. The applicant has requested some waivers and explained why he wants them, and that was voted in favor by the planning board. This is an extra dwelling, so it's a multifamily dwelling and meets the multifamily regulations. It's also increasing the need for housing in this area. Yeah. Is that enough?
Yes.
Okay, all right, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, let me see the next item. Michael and Andrea Macy, voluntary merger of 0.19-006, 0.19-007, and 020-005. This is a voluntary merger. Is anyone here to speak to this issue? Okay, I mean, this does make, this is the required, this is in a rural agricultural district. They require 3 acres per lot. And so the resulting, the lot now is 0.75. The 2 lots that will be joined with this are also 0.275. So it's coming more into conformance with the zoning requirements in the rural agricultural district.
Is there a mortgage on any of these lots?
I don't know that.
Under the statute, the applicant is supposed to submit or request from any lenders written notice that to the mortgage holder at the time of the submission of the application. The written consent of each mortgage holder shall be required as a condition of approval of the merger and shall be recorded with the notice of the merger. And that is important because if there's a mortgage on the property and the mortgage is foreclosed, then there's no longer a merger, which can cause title problems. The town loses money, and you can have an angry lender. So I would like to suggest that the form, because I did bring this up in the last boundary line lot merger, have a question on there so when it comes in, we know whether there is one. but I will make a motion, if you're ready to entertain one, that we obtain confirmation on whether there's a mortgage on the property, and if there is, that consents of each mortgage holder be obtained and recorded with the notice of merger
Okay, and
At
that's
the applicant's expense.
at the applicant's expense, yes.
okay. And you had one condition of approval, and that's the applicant shall be responsible for recording fees for the notice of the merger.
That's why I suggested that could just be added to the other.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, Roger has made a motion. I'll second it. I don't think I have to ask for public comment on this, right? Okay, so motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good. Next one, this is a public hearing for, Roger is stepping down. Let's see, Julie, I think you sat, and so, it's Julie's turn, and Steve will stay. So Julie Jacobs will be the alternate for Roger. This is for Patricia and Kirk Titus, 54 Ferber Lane, tax map and lot 130-021, case 2023-17. This is a subdivision for a two-lot subdivision, and the applicant is here. Jim, you know that you have to explain the waiver to us. And also, could you explain to us about the road, who owns the road?
Yes.
I mean, I think you're taking property from the Tituses, but is it going to affect the ownership of the road or anything of that nature?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I'm Jim Rines from Horizons Engineering. I'm here representing Kirk and Patricia Titus in a two-lot subdivision so that they can create a parcel of land to convey to their daughter and son-in-law so that they can be nearby for aging in place. The existing lot is tax map 130, lot 21. Its address is 54 Ferber Lane. It's 7.1 acres and with 360 feet of frontage on a private road / right-of-way. Ferber Lane comes up here. Mike McLean did a subdivision back in the late 90s or early 90s of these parcels, and he extended Ferber Lane here. The fee interest is still owned by the abutter here, and so it is an easement. It was a dedication on that plan, and similarly, we would propose that this be a similar, it's a dedication by the recording of the plan. The Tituses would prefer to retain ownership and just have an easement over it because they're not really sure who you deed it to, since it's a private right-of-way when it gets up here. Okay. We are proposing two lots, tax map, what we're calling tax map 130-21-2 would be 3.9 acres in size with 217.4 feet of frontage on the platted right-of-way. So it would have this frontage up to this point. And then tax map 130-21-1 would be 3.21 acres with 200 feet of frontage on the platted right-of-way from this point back. As I said, the owners would like to retain ownership of the cul-de-sac, the proposed cul-de-sac, and they also wish to not construct the right-of-way or not construct any road surface. They have an existing driveway to their existing home in here, and they would just come in to the property at this location but it's platted. It's available if ever deemed necessary to construct that turnaround. Either one of these are available. We did dig 2 test pits on the property. Even though there's an existing septic system functioning here and an existing well with the house, we show 4,000 square foot areas for both lots, proposed well here and existing. We had the entire property evaluated for the presence of any wetland, and there was none found on site. We did request a waiver from section 174-9B for HIS mapping, and we requested that because the HIS map had not been completed by the time we made the submittal, but we had engaged for it to be done. It was subsequently done, and I believe it was provided to the town. But
So we don't need the waiver?
I don't really need the waiver. We are twice the size of both the minimum lot size for Paxton soil, which is what the county soil map is, and we also provided the HIS mapping, which the lot is also, it's a similar size as the county soil mapping required. We have submitted to the state for state subdivision approval, but we have not yet received that. Because both of these lots are less than 5 acres in size, we will need state subdivision approval. And we did perform the form factor, and both of these lots comply with the form factor. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board or the public has.
Okay,
Could-
board members?
Could you explain the road access, the deeded access to this lot?
Yes, so right now, Ferber Lane, this is private. It's maintained by the abutters. Here, there's an easement that goes out beyond here, and so the group of people that live up here, they all participate in plowing, grading, whatever's needed to be done. As I said, when Mike McLean did this 2-lot subdivision here, he platted this right-of-way here. It's still in the deed. The deed description for this parcel includes this area as being owned by that party, but this dedication is here. Ferber Lane, there's no real formal end of it other than what's platted both here and on the tax maps. And the proposal would be to, just as this has an offset cul-de-sac, to plat an offset cul-de-sac here for the frontage.
Well, I'm more concerned about the deeded access to the new lot that's further down, not where the platted cul-de-sac is, but the right-hand lot.
So there is legal frontage here right now with the dedication that the McLean plan created, and it's depicted on the tax map. It's recorded at the registry.
And that frontage is on another person's lot.
It's from this point on, it's on another person's lot. From this point back, it's whomever owns that portion of Ferber Lane.
For the purposes of the board, though, under 67441, Ferber Lane, as shown here and on all the other plats, is a street.
It is.
So it is legal for frontage, yes.
Yeah, it was on a plat that was approved by the planning board.
Even though it's not built, it's just a
Well,
deeded cul-de-sac.
There's a road in it, it just doesn't form the full cul-de-sac
Right,
like you would think of a cul-de-sac.
Correct. There isn't a cul-de-sac. The road continues on and goes out beyond here.
Okay, and anyone else? Okay, we don't need to do anything about the waiver. so I entertain a motion that this application is complete. Or I'll make that motion, if somebody would second it.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I can open the public hearing now for this application. Yes, come on up, please.
Hi, Mike Gardina. I live in the lot back here. And
Could you
it's
please
just-
speak into the mic?
oh, sure. So where that new cul-de-sac is, I'm just concerned, and you have to forgive me, I've only seen these drawings for a day or two. I haven't had time to digest all this, but it looks like that is going to become a big choke point there. From a deed back in, I think, 75, the actual distance on Ferber Lane there was 218. And so I don't know, is this a common thing to get extra frontage by carving the cul-de-sac in there? It doesn't seem to help the traffic flow in there at all. And then I have a further concern as to where that driveway is going to go into the new lot there. I just don't know. And so, not having time to review these very long, all I can do is state my concerns.
If it's helpful to the board, I can answer, and I'm
Yeah.
sure Jim can chime in. So the bulb that you're concerned about is not actually going to be built as a road, the same way the existing cul-de-sac is not built as a road. So the road as you're used to it today driving here is not going to change.
Okay?
And then, do you know where, Jim, they're proposing the new driveway? Or is it the same driveway that already exists?
I was half wondering if it's going to be the same driveway.
Driveway is just going to continue past that.
This is Kirk
Yeah.
Titus.
If you could use the microphone, we'd
if
appreciate
somebody
it.
could- Yes.
Our driveway ends, our driveway ends at,
I'm sorry, if you could hold the microphone and speak into it, it would be helpful.
Just pull it out.
Yeah. I need a 30. There you go.
oh, okay. So,
Existing driveway.
yeah. So the new driveway would just continue to this point. The existing Ferber Lane is over here, but we would just, this driveway would be extended past our driveway to the new lot.
So what I'm hearing is that there's no new curb cut per se onto Ferber Lane. There's just going to be a branch that extends to the new lot within their current property. Does that help you? You need to use the
Yeah, you have
microphone,
to-
sorry.
Is there any spacing between the property line and the edge of this driveway?
There's none required, if that helps.
There's none required?
There's none required, no. I don't imagine they'll run the driveway right down the property line.
It's already there. It's been there.
Yeah. It's just that there's never been any
Okay,
traffic on it
folks, you need to talk in the microphone.
Yeah.
You need to hold the microphone right up to your mouth, or we can't hear you.
Yeah, so.
Right up to your mouth.
I know that the road is there. It's just that there's never been any traffic on it before. So I'm not sure what this is going to do in terms of just, more traffic back in here, which is not something that we've been used to. Okay, well, I mean, it sounds to me like it meets code. If it meets code, it meets code, so.
Well, I don't want to speak for the board. It appears to me to meet code, and I would suggest you meet with Mr. Rhines and Mr. Titus to suss out the specifics,
Okay.
if that's helpful.
Yeah, I'd just like to understand it a little bit better.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, I'm Michael Kinselmeyer. I actually own the lot that has the funny-looking cul-de-sac, so...
If you could put your name, please?
Michael Kinselmeyer.
Thank you.
I said that first.
I didn't hear that, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So the only thing I wonder about is there a setback required for a driveway? Because this is on the property line here, and this Woods Road is right up against it. So I'm not just... Is that okay? Is that, or is there a setback required by the town for a driveway?
No, there is no setback.
There is no setback for a driveway,
requirement for a
correct.
driveway.
That's all I need to know.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. All right, thank you. Okay, anyone else want to ask a question or speak to this issue? Okay. Tavis, do you have some conditions for us to consider?
I do. The first, it's unfortunate that Roger recused himself because I modified this condition specifically for him. Maybe he noticed, I don't know. The following plans as amended by the planning board approval are incorporated into the approval, which is the materials received 9/12/2023, specifically, quote, subdivision plan Patricia and Kirk H. Titus IV, 54 Ferber Lane, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, 03894, tax map 130, lot 21, dated 9/18/23, project number 2305525. So that is the same information, I hope. It's in the bottom right-hand corner of the plan that we're looking at. Jim just agreed. The applicant should submit a Mylar for recording at Carroll County Deeds. Applicant shall be responsible for payment of all recording fees. All the documentation in the packet becomes part of the project itself. And the applicant should be responsible for monumentation and submittal of certificate of monumentation, which I don't think we have yet. So the applicant should be responsible for monumentation and submittal of a certificate of monumentation and updated plans, including original stamps and signatures from surveyor, et cetera.
Thank you.
Fairly straightforward in this case. And one thing that didn't come up, and it's not part of the condition of approval, but I think it's relevant for the board to understand that while this bulb that's being created right now doesn't really serve a purpose, there is a large tract of land that Titus is, I'll say, part owner of, for lack of a better phrase, that isn't being discussed at all tonight, but could represent a rather substantial subdivision at some point in the future. So it is my recommendation that extra right-of-way be reserved because the intersection potential there is somewhat large. Does that make sense?
Okay, but it doesn't have anything to do with this application.
Doesn't have anything to do with the application, but I didn't want to make it look like it was just a bulb for the sake of a bulb. There is some future element to this plan potentially.
Okay, thank you. Jim, did you have?
I was simply going to point out what Tavis is speaking about. You'll see on the plan, there's actually this back parcel that he's speaking of has a 50-foot fee strip. It's not a right-of-way, it's a fee strip down here to Ferber Lane, so that, you know, if that should ever happen, this exists at 50 feet wide. Lakes Region Survey, when they created this parcel, they reserved that 50-foot strip of land.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for that information. This application meets all the requirements of the subdivision application in the general residential district. The issue of the driveway was brought up and determined that the driveway does not have to meet the setback. There's no landscaping or storm drainage or snow storage required for subdivision. So if somebody wants to make and also there's no wetlands on the property, so we don't have to concern ourselves with that. And the form factor has been met, and the state approval is still pending, but will become, nothing can happen until they have the
State subdivision will be approved before there's a signed Mylar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve this two-lot subdivision with the...
Second?
Okay. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, all right, thank you very much. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the capital improvement program for 2024 through 2033. The capital improvement program is a planning board program. And as you all will remember, we have a committee assigned to work with the town departments to develop the CIP. Linda Murray is on that committee from the Board of Selectmen, Bob Lohman from the Budget Committee. There are other planning board appointees on the CIP, and that's Chuck Sumner, Suzanne Ryan, and Tim Cronin, and Paul Whalen. I chair the committee. It is our responsibility to hold a public hearing here tonight for the public to ask any questions and hopefully adopt the 2024 to 2033 capital improvement program. This is an advisory document to be used by the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee while they're deliberating to form the budget for 2024. There's also a spreadsheet that's shown at the end of the documents you all received, and it shows the plan going out 10 years and all the projects that the town is now contemplating are laid out in that 10-year period. This is so the Budget Committee, Board of Selectmen, and the public will know what to look forward to after this year and looking forward. Tavis, did you want to make some comments about?
I would, just for those that aren't used to it or those that are at home wondering how to correlate what's online to what is being talked about. The first couple of pages are basically the same as previous years. What's a CIP, how's a CIP function, et cetera. On page 3, I'll point out the department guidelines that were provided and adopted by the Board of Selectmen, guiding department heads in their project preparation for the CIP. Then we go through some more procedural elements, and then going to page 7, these are the projects that would hit the 2024 budget, if you will. I will point out that some of the projects, as you note on the second project under the Public Works Highway Department sidewalk improvements, has an asterisk after it. An asterisk indicates that it is receiving funding for that project through the Capital Reserve Fund, the same as then down under the tree removal and replacement. So capital reserve funds were established by town vote with various amounts of money in them at the time of adoption. So that's what the asterisk means as you go all the way through these projects. There are some projects that include both capital reserve funding and other funding. There are other projects, as you see on page 8, just for a ready example, the Oak and River Complete Street Project. It's a $700,000 project, but the committee broke it down to be more reader-friendly from a budgetary perspective, that $550,000 is coming from general fund and $150,000 is coming from the water fund. That is sort of the general theme going through the remainder of the 2024 projects. On page 13, you see a 2024 project summary. That calls out all of the projects without the narrative element so that you can see the total expense. That total expense, in this case, $5,425,000, matches the same that's on the spreadsheet at the back of the document that lines out all 10 years of the plan. Again, the actual 2024 cost is higher, but this is things that would not be coming out of capital reserve, et cetera. There's also a double asterisk that comes about for, I want to say 2026 or 7. There's 2029 on page 15. There's an ambulance called out with a double asterisk. The double asterisk means that is the year that the fire chief put that element into the plan. He recommended at the time it would be capital reserve funding, but that decision has not yet been met. So the double asterisk is noted as funding source to be determined. This year, for those that aren't aware, the town will be asked, well, without couching it too much, will be asked a question about ambulance services in Wolfeboro. And how that vote relays, or how that vote ends, or subsequent votes will determine how an ambulance is funded in the future. That sounds more convoluted than it is, but it's a moving target at this point with regard to an ambulance. That's why the double asterisk is there. So as you can see, starting on page 14 through 16 is all of the projects that were submitted to the committee for review through 2033. I do want to give an extra shout out to Public Works and Steve Randall for going through all of the vehicle replacements, road upgrades, water upgrades, sewer upgrades, stepping in to help out a coworker who was out on medical leave for a large part of this process. Honestly, and I've only been here 4 years, this is the first time so many projects have been so clearly called out of a 10-year period of time. Page 17 calls out the attachments. I would strongly recommend printing some of these on larger format. The board has 11 by 17 in front of them. The first spreadsheet is what was referred to as the CIP master list. This is all the projects that came in and represents the representative year that the committee agreed to put such a project into the spreadsheet. Ultimately, the CIP is looking for, I'll say, extra operating budget expenses. So it's anticipated capital expenses above and beyond the normal operation of the town. And the purpose of the CIP is to say what's out there, what's coming, and how do we spread this out to attempt, to the extent possible and practicable, high and low spikes in the tax rate. So the master spreadsheet starts out, the first page shows all of the general fund expenses. You can see that, the capital reserve fund asterisks did carry over to the spreadsheet, just for those that are trying to go back and forth between the spreadsheet and the narrative. So first page is all the general fund expenses, so Public Works and Highway, Fire, Library, Parks and Rec, and Libby Museum. The second page goes through water, municipal electric department, sewer, enterprise funds, or otherwise separate accounting. Then at the very bottom of that, it talks about total CIP projects. You see the $5,425,000 that corresponds back to the earlier number. You see the reference to the SAU, that's an annual contribution, not really part of the CIP, but typically reflected in the CIP, so people don't forget to include that number. And then the relative amount of capital reserve funds to be spent on projects. So for example, if you look at 2024, $5,425,000 is coming out of general taxation, if you will, but the total expense is the $5,425,000 plus the $980,000 coming out of the capital reserve fund. So just a reminder for those following along at home in your spare time, make sure you look at total CIP project plus capital reserve fund to find out each representative year's total cost. Going back to page 18, one of the things I'll point out in case it's confusing for people, if you look under Public Works Highway, there are a number of road projects that say, for example, 79% general fund. If you look at the corresponding road under water and or sewer, you will find the other portion of that expense. Public Works is taking a new step saying we're not just going to tear up the road and fix the water line, we're going to do the whole thing. If we're there, we're going to try and do it right. So that's why it's breaking out the proportional cost between who's paying for it or which fund is paying for it. The next spreadsheet is the capital reserve fund planning document. That looks at capital reserve funding, so that lists all of the capital reserve accounts, what's in them, what's coming out in what years based on previous votes and decisions, and what's lined out through 2033. And then the last page of this is the capital improvement plan funding page, so you can see how projects are actually getting funded, what's coming out of revolving loan funds versus general fund cash, water fund, electric fund, capital reserve fund, private donations, grants, other funds, et cetera. I want to commend the board. This is the first time that I've been here that the CIPC completed its task in 5 weeks as opposed to 12 to 14. They're going to be meeting again in November to say what lessons did we learn, how do we improve this process, if at all, for next year. And I think this year worked out very well between the department heads and the committee, and I recommend the board move forward.
In the forecasting for the 10 years, we did talk about the Libby and also a community center, and we really don't, at this point, know what the cost is, but we wanted to include them in the 10-year plan, so they're in there with sort of a ballpark figure.
And that's a good point, because one of the things I noticed is in the first couple of years, the CIP was almost brought up as though it was a new thing, even though everyone had been putting time into it. One of the efforts starting this year and moving forward is that the spreadsheet doesn't change, the years change. So next year, anything that's in 25 may or may not have a change in dollar amount, or the year may change, but then all the departments have to do is change the information with regard to year or funding, and the committee is already aware of it. So the only things to accomplish next year would be new projects for 25 or changes going through 2034. So the spreadsheets are going to keep evolving from where we are today. One of the things we noticed last year, to Kathy's point, is that the community center and the Libby Museum showed up some years and were gone other years, and people thought they were gone. So the point this year was to say, no, the placeholder is there. We don't know exactly what year or how much, but we haven't forgotten that this needs to be addressed. So.
Okay, and I want to thank the town manager and the finance director. They were here for all the meetings, as was Tavis, and then all of the department heads and the time that they put into this, as well as the CIP committee. So, does anybody have any questions?
I have a comment that is sort of related to things such as what's going on with the library, and $250,000 for landscaping and then all this money for solar, but at the same time that is all being provided by donations and grants. And at the same time, somebody reading that particular line may not read farther to find out that those are provided by donations and grants. Is there any way to state it in the landscaping $250,000 through grants and donations so that people now don't worry about it? Because I know that if all of a sudden something gets on the wrong side of the voters, it can cause problems. It may be unnecessary, but I think it's something that might be considered, just so that it is plain that this is donations and grants.
Yeah, that does indicate that in the CIP program.
Below, yes.
And it will, as we're going forward, when the Board of Selectmen Budget Committee, and then finally at town meeting, those issues will be brought up.
And I mean, it's mentioned in the narrative, but it's also brought up on the last spreadsheet with 2024 proposed capital improvement plan funding. So if somebody gets I hear your point. I don't know how to say it more clearly, but it's something to note. Yeah.
If it is decided not to do it any differently, that's probably fine, but I think the question should be asked.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, I'll open the public hearing. If anyone wanted to comment on the CIP program, now is time for you to do that. Okay, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll make a motion to accept the 2024 to 2033 CIP program and pass it on to the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee for their deliberations.
Actually, before you do that, Kathy,
okay, sorry.
No, that's all right. there's one small, call it a Scrivener's error if you like. On page 3, under departmental guidelines, I'm assuming the Board of Selectmen acted at their June 7th, 2023 meeting, not 2024.
Yes. Well caught. Make sure you're reading it, Doug.
We can always count on Doug and Roger to.
Well, I don't want to be outdone here, so on page 8, under the Oak and River Street provision, up above it says 550 from the general fund and 150 from the water fund, but when you get to the last full line of that paragraph, you seem to be $50,000 short. Should it be 550 down there?
That's in parentheses at the end of that paragraph.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Anything else? Okay, well, I'll amend my motion to say with the corrections noted. Would you like to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Tavis.
question?
This, just a sec, or else I'll forget. This will be on the town website.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so people can take a look at it, and also the CIP committee also will want a final copy of this.
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully, we found the only 2 Scrivener's errors to be.
Yeah, okay.
That was the question.
Oh, okay. All right, very good. Okay, let's see. Jeff Bream. Brem, okay, sorry. Conceptual multifamily on Willow Street. This is 6 units at the end of Willow Street, and it fronts on Back Bay.
So while Jeff is getting ready, this was actually scheduled for a public hearing with the board a few months ago. From my understanding, it started as a 10-unit building, turned into an 8-unit building, and a lot of time has been put in by Mr. Brem and others to best address all setback issues, zoning compliance issues, wetland issues, shoreland issues. And I believe the plan that you have in front of you is compliant with all zoning regulations.
Thank you. Thank you,
Okay,
Travis.
and you're just here for a conceptual discussion with the planning.
Yeah, if I may. My name is Jeffrey Brem. I'm with Mazda Brem Corporation, also the developer. So I'm engineer and developer on this property. At some point, I've gone over with Tavis some of my history as developing down in Massachusetts, but I'm New Hampshire. I've been born in Mass, raised in Maine, and lived in New Hampshire for quite a while. So I'm an upper New Englander. I won't belabor you with my background. I just want to go through the project with you. It is conceptual only. I've been working on this thing for 6 months. We've been starting and stopping and starting and stopping. And at a certain point, I figured I would like to introduce myself to the board, introduce you to the project, and get some feedback. So that's what we're here. And I think we have some other interested parties, which I think is a good thing. Let me describe for you. The actual address is 15 Willow Street. Willow Street is here. This is the old map that Horizons did, I believe. I know you all know this. This is the Bridge Falls Trail right here. This is the dam and the old buildings here, the smokestack back here. And this property was subdivided out. Somebody else owns this 2+ acre, 1.7 acre property, and I purchased this 2 acre property. And it's a little bit larger than 2 acres because the islands are in addition to it. But it's 2 acres here. The frontage is on Willow Street and also on the trail, the pathway. This is a aerial shot of it. That came from the Realtor. So this is the dam right there and the old mill. and this is the piece that we're talking about right here. And there's Wolfeboro Center and the lake. It's a 2-acre piece. Like I said, it's technically map 207, lot 17, but the address it took us forever to figure out is 15 Willow Street, and why I say that is because this lot is map 207, lot 15. This lot is map 207, lot 17, but it's actually 15 Willow Street. Caused a lot of confusion for the lawyers. It's in the Wolfeboro Falls Limited Business District, which allows a various amount of uses, as you know. But although it does allow a lot of business uses, the property is really secluded. There's really no access from any of the main roads. The access is off of Willow Street. We're not going to drive over the old rail trail. So it's kind of a peninsula, and it's isolated. So looking at the uses, we would like to propose a residential use, a multifamily building. And as Tavis said, we started out with 10 units and dropped it to 8 units. We got approval from the state to fill some wetlands, but the issue with the first floor residential, we changed it now to a 6-unit building. So let me show you that. So again, this is the trail, this is the mill, this is Willow Street coming in. We're going to extend Willow Street to a drive down, and then you would drive underneath. It's one single building. There'd be parking underneath, a small fitness room and some storage areas on the first floor, and then 3 stories above it, 2 stories, 2 residential units per story. So a total of 6. There's 6 spaces of underground parking and 9 spaces of surface parking. This surface parking would be porous pavement. Tavis knows my history. I've been in the Massachusetts Stormwater Committee for over 30 years. I helped kind of respond to the changes in the Stormwater Manual in Massachusetts, which New Hampshire used as a basis for their manual. So I'm a stormwater guru, I guess. I love porous pavement, so these would be on pavers. The rest of the building would be discharged to this stormwater management facility here, outside of the 20-foot area for the lake, and that would have an overflow into the lake. That's a quick version on stormwater. Back to the building. The building is here. There's a 50-foot, as you know, shoreline setback, so I'm going to draw the 50-foot line, if you will, as best I can with the laser. That's it. And there's a minimum 10, maximum 20-foot front yard setback here, 15-foot setback here. And so you can see this is really the area that can be developed. One of the problems was, how do we get the building to break this setback if it's covered with wetland? So I proposed a walkway out of the garage onto a covered walkway with stairs going up, and then with a bridge over the wetland and onto the trail. That covered walkway, covered bridge would also be expanded in this area for bike storage. So each of the units would have a small 6-foot by 10-foot section for bicycle storage here, so they could jump on the path. What else is this? Is the front door here. The back door, rear exit would also come, pathways from the parking area would come to a potential pool back there. I think we discussed this at the last plan. It may or may not happen, but you wanted me to show it, assuming that it would happen. So there's a pool and a deck here. All of this meets the state's requirements for wetlands and for shoreline protection. The building is at the right setback. All the work is at the right setbacks. I actually got permission to fill this portion of the wetland for the other plan. So I have done an environmental study. Lenora wanted me to do that. We did a detailed environmental study on the property because of the old mill and the Excelsior plant next door. I did a historical study for the state permit. I also did an archaeological study for the state permit. And so I've done a lot of studies in the last 6 months as well. The building would be have an elevator all the way from the garage floor, the first floor, up to the units. It would have a sprinklered building. I've already talked to the fire department. It would be fully sprinkled building. The water service would come in from Willow Street. We had a meeting today with the DPW and the light department, because you may or may not know, all these lights are being replaced, and they wanted to meet with me to use this land as a staging area. So I said, hey, I'll be coming up Tuesday. Let's all meet out there. So we met out there today to talk about the staging area for the new light project, but also how we're going to get power into the building, water coming up from Willow Street, from the main road, and also sewer at the end of Willow Street. There's a pump station. We'll be tying into that. I've gone over the architectural design standards of Article 9, Sections 173-19, and I'll tell you now that I will meet them. My architect, the reason why we haven't applied for a final site plan is because we're doing the architectural plans now. They're completely different than the previous plan. And we're using your guidelines as our basis, our foundation. So material selection, there'll be a lot of wood, some stonework. Section 173-1911, we'll be following those for traditional building materials. We will follow the requirements for having the front facade, one main block, the roof lines, and so forth. So we got your standards, and we're going to follow them. The architect's been hired, and outside the fact that he's going to Barcelona for 10 days to see his son, we'll be hopefully coming back to you with a kind of a concept plan as part of our formal submission. So that's it. I'm here to state what's going on, but also to receive some feedback. So I got my pen right here, and bring it on.
Okay, planning board members, questions?
Yeah, I have a question about the parking. On the plan here, it shows with underground garage, and then underneath that it says first floor parking. So I'm trying to understand, is it underground or is it first floor?
It's first floor. It's terminology. It's first floor parking. It's on the first floor. Some people consider that an underground garage, but...
Well, my question is based on, are you planning to dig down into the ground and literally have it under the current
Interesting
soil
question.
level?
So this section here, I will be at grade, and this section here will be digging down. So the answer is both.
Okay.
But you won't be driving into a hole.
Yeah. As you drive in, it'll appear level with the parking lot outside, I presume.
Yeah, there's a drop down. The ramp, it's not really a ramp. The grade starts moving down here, and then when you get here, it's fairly flat. I think it's 208 there, 210, 212. So it's like the 3.5–4% grade through here, and this is up to 6% grade.
So, Doug, one of the reasons for this plan in particular is that Bay Street Limited allows multifamily, but not apartments on the first floor. So in discussion with council, it ultimately is up to the board, because our ordinance doesn't define what the first floor is, to your question. But I would be recommending when this comes forward that the first floor is not apartments. And it's also clear from council that a residential use, i.e. parking for said residences, does not violate the ordinance. It's just the apartments cannot be on the first floor. But something the planning board, aside from this project, the planning board might want to understand that the way the ordinance is currently written prevents 8 or potentially 10 units for 6 units for that clause, if you will.
I thought that when we reread that thing again, that it said commercial only on the first floor.
It does not say that. It says residential apartments except on the first floor.
That's how it says it.
It says it that way. I thought it said it the other way.
What's that?
I thought it said it the other way. I thought it said it was commercial only on the first floor.
I can read it if
So
you
you couldn't have
want,
commercial
but
on the second floor, but you could have apartments on both.
No.
He'll read it. It's the opposite. It says residential apartments not allowed on the first floor.
How would,
Yeah, I know, how, right.
how will you address building height with 3 stories on top of the parking level?
Yeah, so the building height is, you probably know, is defined by a reference grade. So we went over it with the building department today. I have to determine a reference grade for that and then go up 30 feet from that reference grade and then back down. So like I said, right here, there'll be a cut. So the 30-foot won't be an issue on this part of the building. I have to look at it at this side of the building.
So it's the natural grade?
It's the natural
Yeah.
grade, yes.
What is going to be the visual impact from the Bridge Falls path, given that that is something that the Wolfeboro residents and our visitors end up using very dramatically. You have an aerial photo, but there didn't seem to be anything from the point of view of the Bridge Falls path as to whether this is going to be an eyesore, or it is going to be blend in, or whether there's going to be trees in the way, or what the deal is going to be.
Great question. Thank you for that. Let's start with the grade. The grade here is at 222, and it's pretty flat through here. So this grade right here is about 222. The grade of the building is going to be about 218. So the first floor will be 4 foot below, and then going up 30 feet from there, approximately. So you'll see 2.5 stories from here. From your eye level, even less. I'm talking about from your foot level. So from your eye level, you'll see pretty much 2 stories. So it won't look that bad. From this direction, from the lake, it will look completely different. So that's that issue. As far as the trees go, I can't cut any of these trees right there. And there's a lot. And I can't cut any, I'm not going to be cutting any trees on this side. So as you walk down the path, all these trees will be there. And all these trees will be there. There'll be this bridge and this walkway, and we looked today, the new post that they're taking that one out, and they're going to put it right there. So, which worked out good, luckily. So you won't, you'll be seeing the building through the trees.
I guess that when you make your final presentation, it would be useful to see those architectural views that are from the Bridge Falls path, so that we can understand that better, because a 3-story building plus a garage underneath seems like a reasonably tall structure, and is definitely going to change the way it looks from the path.
I think the key thing for the board to remember is that you're evaluating it against the regulations. So you just used a lot of terms that might be relevant, but not in the regs. That's a fair balance. I'm not belittling the question, because it's going to come up. Back to Julie's question, 175-105H. Residential apartments, common, not permitted on the first floor.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. You said you've gotten your state approvals?
Some of them. I got state approval for the old plan. Going back to the density, the site itself allows 13 units, 13.2 to be exact. I always planned on less than that, so I started with a 10-unit building, and then that was changed because of the state to an 8-unit building, and that plan went forward with the state to get a wetlands board permit. And I think it's behind me, but I actually got the wetlands board permit to fill 858 square feet of this wetland right here. Cut the trees, fill it. That is not happening now with this plan. So that permit that I have, I don't really need. I will need a shoreland permit, and that permit will come after this one. I have to locate all the trees and show all the work I'm going to do within the first 50 feet. I have to prove that I'm doing so much work overall. The 150-foot line is right there. So all that work has to be approved by the state. And lastly, I have to do stormwater, and the stormwater has to be approved by the state.
So other things to remember, this area is exempt from the town shoreland regulations.
Oh,
What?
you mean the shoreland regulations don't apply to this because it's the Wolfeboro Falls Limited Business District?
Correct. The town regs don't, but the state do.
Yeah.
And the reason the 8-unit plan went away is because, we determined that the front is the Bridge Falls path line, and the fill that was debated and now permitted through the state but not contemplated here, proposed parking that was in the front yard, which is not allowed by regulation. So this redesign puts the parking in the side or rear yard as allowed. But that, again, reduces the number of units.
What you show here, as I understand it, is there would be construction taking place in the 50-foot buffer.
The 50-foot wetland buffer or the 50-foot
Shoreline buffer. You've got part of a parking lot. You've got part of the area around the pool.
That's allowed. They could go up to 20 feet for the state. The building has to be 50 feet away. All work has to be 20 feet away.
Yeah, so the likely application coming in front of the planning board would be probably a 7-unit condominium subdivision special use permit for buffer or setback encroachment into the wetlands, as well as site plan review.
6 unit, you said 7.
Well, it's 6 units, but I'm assuming there's going to be a common lot for the association
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
with the condo. It'd be condominium units, 6 condo units. So outside the building would be at least one other
Common area.
common lot.
That would just be common area of the condominium. It wouldn't be a separate lot.
Correct, it won't be a building unit.
You also have the town wetland ordinance setbacks, which it appears you don't comply with.
We'll be getting a conditional use, a special use permit, sorry,
For wetlands, yes.
for wetlands. We've met with Lenora a few times, and she reviewed the previous applications as well.
And you're going to rebuild Willow Street from this property to Center Street?
Yes,
Okay.
I volunteered that right from the beginning, right, Tavis?
Well, it's also required. We learned today that it's, in Rod Dempsey's words, a very old 2-inch water line going down Willow Street.
So by the time I rip up the road for the water and the sewer, the road's in bad shape as it is, I said, let me just rebuild it, and everybody seems to be on board with that.
And I assume you'll talk to the town about the walkway here?
Yep, I have.
And to that end, before you leave it, the extent of, I'll call it the Willow Street extension, even though it won't be named that, but the area beyond the path that is still within the town right-of-way will be built to town. The Willow Street right-of-way extends across the path. So any improvements that are made for the driveway will have to be done to town road standards for the extent that they're there.
But your road's, what, 22 feet
22
wide
feet,
under the
yeah.
property?
Yep.
I think it would be helpful when we get another plan if it had a key or a legend. I found trying to follow some of these dotted lines was a bit of a challenge. There were an awful lot of them, and I think I sorted them all out. If you look, starting with the pervious pavement in the northeast direction, there's a line that runs all the way around the pool and then back out to the walkway. Is that going to be a wall the whole way?
This right here? This is
Well,
going to be a wall.
The whole, it starts.
Oh, this whole line right here? No, that's an erosion control device. That's a silt sock. That's for erosion controls.
Okay. Is that permanent or temporary?
No, just during construction.
Okay, I could not,
It probably is not labeled. These are not 100% done plans.
okay.
If you notice, the sewer pump station doesn't point to the sewer pump station right now and so forth.
I would have a concern about the snow storage in the wetlands over there. You could
Here?
show snow storage up, it would be,
Yeah, but just behind the screen dumpster, I was looking at that as well.
That right there?
No, above the screen dumpsters, a little higher.
it says storage, snow storage too.
I would invite you
leader's
to
not
swing by my
exempt.
shop during the winter and see what Wolfeboro uses for snow storage before you stir that all up, okay?
There's supposed to be a leader there. This is, again, Travis said if you get the plans in by a certain date, and I wanted to get them in, then I had vacations, people going on vacation on Friday, so they're like 95% perfect plans, but that there needs to be a leader from that snow storage label to that point there.
And when you come in, you'll give us condominium
It'll be perfect when I
documents.
come in.
You'll have
I think it'll
condominium
be
documents.
perfect.
Is that a yes on
Yes, it will.
condominium documents?
Yes.
I think you're going to have to go to the Board of Adjustment for your setback.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
You're not meeting the setback requirement, which admittedly makes no sense in this case, but I don't think we can waive it.
Which setback?
The maximum 20, minimum 10.
Meaning the building is set back too far from the lot line.
He's landing at 10 feet.
It's right there.
Building does not look 10 feet to me.
Right there.
It is 10 feet right there.
He's including the bike storage as part of the structure.
That is all one structure.
I don't think that flies.
Actually, the definition of structure is pretty light compared to other structures. It doesn't require a roof. I'm putting a roof on anyway, but and so forth. So we believe it complies.
No, that's up for discussion. I think that but you are meeting the woodland buffer 25%, I assume?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that it, Roger?
Amazingly, yes.
Oh,
I have one other question. That is,
Okay.
are you planning on docks?
I'd like to. I would say yes, I'm planning on it, but I don't know if the property can support it for various reasons. I went out there today, and I believe it's hard for me to tell. I didn't take my pants off and walk around the water, but there's some deep water over here. But that water may impede the tournament that you have that goes out there every year. So they're going to have comments on that. I don't think it's deep enough over here, which I was hoping it was, because it's kind of protected. So I don't know. If I can get it approved, yes, that's a state approval. If I can't get it approved, then I won't have docks. So.
Well, I guess I'd just like to urge you, that's been, I think, the only tournament site in the state for 42 years. It's a real asset to the community. It brings people in.
I will not ruin their tournament site, I could assure you. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have you talked to Parks and Rec? Because they actually are responsible for the Bridge Falls path.
Have we talked to them, Tavis? Were they part of the TRC?
I don't think we've talked to the Parks and Rec specifically, but we did talk to the town about getting approval to make the appropriate crossing.
His letter said you talked to Steve Randall and Barry Muccio, but
Did you think to
I think it would be good if you talked to Christine Collins, so she
Christine
knows
Collins,
what's
got it.
going on.
I can send you contacts.
Did
Thank
you
you,
think
Kelly.
to link in the snowmobile club? Did you think to link in the snowmobile club as well? Since they do run the groomers all winter long through there? Because that turns into a snowmobile path
Right.
when there's snow. Which
Now
is
you
gonna
need
go right over your
snowmobile storage
driveway.
on your walkway.
What's that?
Now you need snowmobile storage on your walkway.
Well, they go, you'd be surprised how fast they go whipping through there, and if somebody's pulling out in a car crossing the path, you're probably going to need a little bit of extra signage and
Yep.
a little bit of extra caution.
Signage and caution, okay. Is there a club for that in town?
Yes,
There-
Wolfeboro Snowmobile Club.
You'll help me with that too?
There's
Tavis?
several. Steve Randall's on vacation this week, so he couldn't be part of the on-site, but he's well aware that signage needs to be addressed. I mean, snowmobiles aside, just pedestrians and cyclists that aren't used to anyone being there.
Any other planning board questions? Do you mind if I go to the public?
No, I want you to. But
Oh,
before I
okay.
do that, you just mentioned signage. I don't have a detail of that, and I don't even know if I will by the time I apply for a site plan. But obviously, we're going to want to have some kind of an entrance sign complying to the regulations, but we will have a sign at some point. It may not be part of the site plan. It may come after. A lot of times, I like to do it after because you need the visual. If I design it now, it may not look right. So I'll come in during construction and get that sign approved.
And
Yes,
for-
I want to hear comments,
Yeah,
please.
okay.
And for board interest, just before you do that, Jeff was made aware of this today, that the 17 neighbor has reached out to me, and apparently the plan at this time is a single-family home. Obviously, there's nothing set in stone, there's no permit, et cetera, but just so you have an idea of context when this comes forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is any member of the public want to ask a question? Okay.
Bill Swafield for the Abenaki Water Ski Club. Actually, this was our 43rd summer doing tournaments and practices in Back Bay. Our water ski jump is the only water ski jump north of Massachusetts, so northern New England, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. That's the only site you can watch water ski jumping. We've had several national champions and a world record holder slalom skier, Jamie Beauchesne. And we have more than just tournaments. We have daily practices out there with multiple skiers with limited hours. Our current hours for skiing are 8 to 1 p.m. and then again 4 to sunset from May 1st through October 31st. Obviously, people aren't skiing out there every minute of the day, but that's the situation. We used to have the water ski jump out on Wolfeboro Bay, but when it became like Long Island Sound, it would just tear the jump up. So we moved it into Back Bay and removed about over 100 logs over the years. If you've seen any pictures of Back Bay after the 1938 hurricane, you will know that it was completely covered with logs. And it was unusable until we cleaned that out in 1981, and actually 1980. We'd be happy to work with the developer on any docks that he would like to put in if that's the way he's going to go. There is one section there where the safe passage, where our boats path down and make a stop, that's only just 300 feet wide or slightly over. So any docks in one position out there would negate the 300-foot, 150 feet safe passage on either side. And that's if you go right down the middle. So we also aren't the only people using Back Bay. There's plenty of other recreational use out there. So if we could work with the developer as he goes with his plans for the water, we would certainly appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Bill.
Yeah, as I said, we realize and recognize, I don't say we, it's basically me right now, it's important. It's an important feature for the town, and we're going to work with them. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, and anyone else from the public want to speak or ask a question or get clarification?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Jim Dagnan. I'm a property owner on Back Bay, 98 Center Street, and I really appreciate how you've laid everything out here and done your homework ahead of time with the wetlands and the impervious pavement.
Closer.
So,
hold it closer to your mouth.
Yeah, sorry about that. Jim Degnan, 98 Center Street, Back Bay property owner, and I appreciate how Mr. Brem has laid everything out here. A lot of my concerns are addressed right off the bat. Being a water skier with Bill and knowing the area, you know, we have to go into the cove around here. You hit a lot of things back there, so this spot might be your best bet if you do want to dock. One of my concerns would be, is there bedrock there? Do you need to blast? Because we have some very old buildings there, so we'd want to keep an eye on the foundations if that was the case. Sure.
I don't know how you want me to do this. One question at a time is fine with me.
No,
so, yeah, there is bedrock there. We don't know the extent of it yet. My thought is it won't be very much blasting because we're going to be doing in any of the area. It's mostly fill. So there will be a little bit. There's a rock right here, but we'll probably hammer that rock out of there. And they have hammers now, so we don't need to blast so much. So I'm going to try to hammer it as much as I can.
Okay, great. And my other question was about the rail trail. That's the most heavily used part of the rail trail. So, you know, other places on the rail trail, we have a stop sign for the road. But this is more of a driveway. So would we have a stop sign for the driveway and the rail trail has the right of passage? How would that work? Other than that, keeping the trees there and everything, that sounds great as far as the view on the rail trail.
So signage will be addressed through DPW. One of the things I pointed out is on the private property side of the trail is still in the right-of-way, so it might be treated like a street intersection. You know, I don't want to suggest that there's going to be rapid flashing beacons and the striped crosswalk, but there's going to be something to say, you know, slow your vehicle down, or if you're on a bicycle, hey, vehicles might be here.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And anyone else?
Mind if I stop?
Okay, all right. I think you have quite a few comments that you can work on, and
Yes, thank you. I just want to comment, my last comment is it's been a pleasure working with the town so far. The whole TRC process and dealing with Tavis and the people of the town. Maybe it's because I said I'm going to rebuild the road, but the DPW loves me, so I want to keep it that way. So I'm definitely a transparent person, open, honest, and straightforward. So I like the comments today. That's why I was here. Tavis said, why do you want to see them? I said, I want to do this. I'm going to spend a lot of money. I've already spent a lot of money. I'm going to spend a lot of money in architecture and so forth. And I don't want to go backwards. I like to go forwards, and I like people to see what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So thank you very much for your feedback tonight.
Okay, all right, thank you for coming.
And just to that end, for
Yeah.
the public that are taking pictures, et cetera, this meeting is technically non-binding on behalf of the planning board, and so it might change. I don't think it's going to change much 6 months into design, but this isn't a promise.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Grace Garvey, conceptual reconfiguration of non-conforming lots. Yeah, that's a bit high.
I'm a little shorter than those before me. Thank you so much, Grace Garvey. And I do, with your blessing, Madam Chair, I do have a couple handouts. Thank you, Tavis. And I have met with Tavis with the Technical Review Committee to talk about this conceptual plan. This is a proposed boundary line adjustment. I'm here to speak on behalf of my family. My sister Ann Corson is here as well, and we're working with Norway Plains to do what will be eventually an application to the select board, the planning board, for a boundary line adjustment. In order to talk you through what we're proposing, I just need to give a little history. Our grandparents purchased number 42 Sewell Road, which is map 217, lot 132, back in the early 1930s. They raised my mother, Paula Garvey, and her sister, Mimi Dye, or Mary Dye. You may know her as well. She's a local. In 1946, they purchased number 48 Sewell Road, and thereafter, essentially, those two lots were treated by our family as one, even though they've been in perpetuity two separate lots. If you look at the both the tax map and the survey that was completed in 1993 by my grandmother when she set up her trust, you will see that the boundary from the building, which is at 42 Sewell, is 5.77 feet from the common property boundary. So if you're 6 feet tall and you've got your feet up against the house at 42, your head's hanging over into 48. In fact, the walkway to the front door at 42 is on number 48's property. Our mother passed in May of this year. Excuse me. And we have been tasked, my brother and I, with being the trustees of 48 Sewell Road. We have come to realize that we will have to sell that property. Excuse me, this is a very emotional process for my whole family, and I know that some of my family members are watching tonight on YouTube. So in order to clean up what we think could be a potential future problem for the owners of 42, given the tight setback of 5.77 feet, we would like to propose a boundary line adjustment. It would basically be about 14 feet, maybe even less than that. We're still working out those numbers with Norway Plains. And basically what it would do is create two almost equally sized lots with frontage, which really, they're both non-conforming lots. They'll never be conforming. So they really don't fall into the, they're exempt from the frontage and area configurations. But I just want to point out that what we're proposing is roughly the same size lots for 42 and 48. We think that, again, it will improve the setback. I mean, I'm a conflict resolution professional. I work a lot with the courts. There is nothing worse than that kind of constraint between neighbors, frankly. So we want to kind of protect the goodwill and good nature of two future owners of 48 and 42. So we think that it'll be a betterment of those two properties. And again, it will increase the setback for number 42. We're not proposing any building. We don't believe in any way that it's going to impact our other neighbors. It's still in the same, each of those two properties are still in the same family, even though they're in two different trusts. All the beneficiaries are the same for each trust. So that I would love to answer any questions that you have or take things into consideration as we move forward into application phase.
So for the board, I originally looked at this and said, well, 48 is already non-conforming, it's going to become more non-conforming. And I have been convinced by the family and others to look at reconfiguration of non-conforming lots, and I believe this is completely within the wheelhouse of the planning board to address this under the reconfiguration of non-conforming lots, which grants the board the authority to consider reduced frontage and lot size for an overall improvement of the situation. I would submit to the board, as much as 14 or 15 feet might not seem like a lot or a significant amount, it is actually going to be better for both properties moving forward under the current regulations as written to have this boundary line adjustment or reconfiguration occur. And I believe it's entirely within your authority. If you had questions on that.
I think what you're proposing makes all the sense in the world.
There you have it.
Okay.
Thank you. Any
Anybody
questions?
else?
Or
Okay.
nothing? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, Ken, you have to come up. Talk into the mic, please.
Ken Perry. According to the survey, the beach is now going to be on a different lot.
We couldn't figure out how else to do it. We talked about splitting the beach in half, but it didn't make sense if we're trying to build harmony between two neighbors. So the dock will go with 48, and the beach will go with 42 in the new proposed lot line adjustment. There's actually a place to get into the water to the west of the dock on number 48, so we don't think that's constraining at all for who the future owners. So yes, the beach, because it just made sense that that line would go there. The beach is an old-fashioned horseshoe dug into the embankment.
The dock isn't shown on this plan, and I'm just curious where it's located.
So it is in front of the house on your survey in 1993. We didn't have a dock in 1993, so it wasn't on the plan because we didn't have one. I don't know when we built it. It was 2000, maybe 2000. My mother, who was 80, bought a boat at the time, and she was the owner of 48. So the new survey will show the dock.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone else? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. I'm sorry you had to wait so long.
Oh, and I
But I'm sure
appreciate
it
your
was
service. I
fascinating.
appreciate your service. Thank you. And I really want to thank Travis. He's met with me now twice and my family to answer questions, and I appreciate all his help. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Next item is the Lakes Region Planning Commission Housing Update Discussion. And so Roger is our rep to the Planning Commission, and as is Tavis. So I did send you a letter that we received from the Planning Commission that sort of outlines the concerns that have been brought up. So I don't know, do you want to go first, Roger?
Well, I think that Jeff Hayes' letter pretty well summarizes the discussion. At the September meeting, there were 4 new commissioners, and although the regional housing needs assessment had been discussed at 2 prior meetings this spring, they were not familiar with it, and so there were questions, and what it came down to essentially was whether if a town decided to adopt the assessment, whether it wanted to include the fair share table. The executive committee of the Planning Commission voted not to include it, or not to recommend including it. I would not include it. I can tell you what it says. For Wolfeboro, it has total occupied housing units in 2020 of 2,879, and then total new housing in 2040. This was based solely on existing population. Has 333 new housing units, 139 of which would be affordable, either owned or rented, which would give you 42% of new housing to be affordable, would be 42%. I would not be in favor of including that. I would be in favor of adopting the regional housing needs assessment, which I think is thorough and very good. I think if you adopt this fair share thing, then if we fail to reach it, that would be one of the quivers and the arrows being shot at us. Arrows in the quiver being shot at us.
Okay, so you need some guidance from...
Yes,
yeah.
okay.
Okay.
At the next meeting, we were told to come back for the October meeting with guidance from our towns.
Okay, go ahead, Tavis.
So one of the things that was discussed at the executive committee was exactly what Roger just said. There has been, I don't want to say threat of a lawsuit, but potential threat of a lawsuit, which Roger politely referred to as a quiver or an arrow in the quiver. The number of the RPCs have been reticent to accept that table for fear that that table was a commitment to 200, 300, whatever the number of units was. So to that end, Jeff Hayes, the executive director, suggested, and the executive committee followed, that the executive committee was recommending the report, but not the table. Talking to Jeff again at this attack meeting Monday this week, he's preferably, he doesn't say it specifically in the letter, but specifically it would be helpful if there was a letter from the planning board recommending adoption of the report, plus the table or something to that effect. Also, at the end of the letter, there was reference to an economic development district. Currently, Concord refers to Lakes Region and the North Country as one economic unit, which largely deprives the Lakes Region of its, I don't want to say fair share, but a unique voice in the ability to get economic development incentives. The idea behind the economic development incentives is that not only do we need to provide housing for workers, but we need to make sure we have workers for the housing. You don't want to just theoretically put 300 additional housing units in a community and not have a workforce to support it, because then you haven't really solved the issue. So it's sort of a two-pronged approach, and my recommendation for the committee is to draft a letter to LRPC through Jeff recommending adoption of the plan without the table and full support for furthering the economic development district as outlined in the letter.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Any other comments?
I just have one comment to what you said about Lakes Region and all north being lumped together. North of the mountains is totally different than here, so it's hurting them as well.
Tell that to Concord. Okay. I don't want to put words in Concord's mouth, but the way it was relayed to me to Jeff was Concord sort of looks at everybody up here as rural and the same, but there are vast differences.
Even over in Plymouth is totally different.
Gradations of north.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and north and west.
Correct.
Totally different.
And this would make us separate.
Correct. Its own development district would have its own, similar, Wolfeboro has economic revitalization zones. And it would be effectively the same thing, but at a larger scale for the Lakes region.
But there still is, we can make it as pretty as we can to have people come in and build things, but if they don't want to build it, we can't make them. There's still that issue. So
Correct.
please
Well,
don't
the
sue
idea
us.
for not including the table is to make it not look like the town has committed to 300 houses or X number of affordable, et cetera.
Was there any talk of state funding for these efforts?
There's a lot of question about how communities in general are supposed to provide subsidized housing when there is no mechanism to subsidize.
Yeah, and I can certainly understand that, since that's what we're going through with Harriman Hill.
Slightly. Harriman Hill is a
Yeah.
prime example.
Right.
But there are also communities that have no water and sewer, and affordable all but requires water and sewer, and even those towns without water and sewer are on the hook through that table for X number of units, and they said, where? How? So.
Looks good on paper.
Okay, so is it okay if Tavis and Doug and I put together a letter and get it off to Lakes Region?
I think it would be helpful if there was a motion on the record to support the report without the table and further the
Okay,
economic
Peter, are you about to make a motion?
I support the report without the table.
I'll second.
Okay.
In
Motion
in the
has been-
economic development zone?
In the economic development zone.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, all right. Just one other issue that has come up, we have a proposal to update some of the maps in the natural resource inventory, so we're going to be able to try and do that this year. Is that?
Yes, a couple of months ago, Kathy and I and Lenore and Dan Coons basically went from start to finish in the NRI. There were a number of things, between grammatical errors and updates and other things, but the thing that became the most obvious is that the maps are out of date. So we reached out to one firm who quoted a very reasonable figure of $85,000 to redo.
85,000.
85,000, yeah, I was being sarcastic about it being reasonable to redo the portions of the plan. Lenore then reached out to a couple of other contacts, and they came back with sort of I don't want to say a cafeteria plan, but that sort of ilk that would be about this much to do the maps and this much to do various sectional updates, et cetera. So where the planning board budget this year has $7,500 in it that was originally used for impact fee updates / question mark, as there hasn't been any conclusion on that, and the money is available, be my recommendation to update the maps on the NRI.
Right, and I think we last did that section of the master plan, I think it was 13.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
Is the folks that Lenore was talking to in the cafeteria plan, something can be added onto piecemeal to get all the maps done? So
Well,
we can only do these 3 today, and then we can do those 2 in 6 months, and we can do those later?
All of the maps can be done for the money that's available now. What we didn't want to do was commit to a contract that went beyond that, because there's no
Right.
guarantee coming out of budget committee that planning board budget line will remain at that dollar amount.
Okay, anybody else have anything? If not, the minutes of September 19th?
I have one correction, and that's the spelling of Rich Massey's name.
Yes,
It's
right.
M-A-S-S-E.
Okay, I thought they were very good minutes.
Well, that was aggressive.
Well, I would like to say that these minutes are much more readable than some in the past.
Yes, it was a pleasure to read them.
Hear that?
Yeah. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Oh,
we
well,
have
no.
Was there a motion to approve
No,
this?
no,
Ah,
wait,
okay.
no, I was about to do that. Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the September 19th minutes
So
with the
moved.
corrections?
Seconded.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? All right, great. And now, Roger, would you like to make your motion to
I
adjourn?
would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second. All in favor?
Aye. Wow.
Okay, folks, thank you very much.